Admittedly, when it comes to share, it does lack answers, which some people may crave the answers to. But with it feeling kind of Black Mirror inspired, you may allow yourself to push past anything that doesn't go answered and just enjoy what it gives you. So to summarize the film, a man who's never given a name, he's just number 14, finds himself in what looks like some type of cradle box, maybe a room no bigger than the one I'm in. In it, there is a shower, a toilet, and a sink, but he learns quickly that none of these have water. In order to get any kind of water, he has to entertain on this camera in order to get credits or some type of currency that in exchange he can get water, he can get food, clothing, because when we meet him he's just in his underwear. And the way number 14 operates is he does tricks like handstands and stuff like that where he nearly hurts himself in order to gain currency little by little. After a certain point in the film, he eventually meets a man whose number's way too long for me to say, so we'll just call him by his last two digits, which is 73. In 73, he's a bit of a curmudgeon old man, but he helps 14 kind of refine his act in order to make money. In exchange, because nobody watches 73, 14 gives him some money so he can live a little bit. As time goes on, they meet 11, who is somebody that reminds 14 that, yeah, it's nice that you're doing well and all, but don't forget, we're trapped in here. We have no idea how we ended up in here, and something is very wrong. And with that in mind, 14 and 11 begin to try to figure out what's wrong with these boxes, since there's no type of villain or anything like that. The only thing that you get a sense of that's the control of all this is just the computer that's in front of them that they can type little commands in, which oftentimes don't lead to much. But as it's discovered by 11 that there are some commands that some people can do that others can't, or certain things that people can do besides those three that lead to strange reactions, so comes the entrance of number 28, who we meet before number 11, I think, because number 14 likes watching her do yoga poses. And eventually she gets involved and she tries to counterbalance 11's push for questioning things, revolution, or trying to get out the box. She pushes the idea that maybe the box isn't so bad considering the lives that we have, maybe even compared to the outside world, which of course makes her look like a plant. But in time, it becomes very much clear that 14 can't try to appeal to 11 and 28 at the same time. Never mind, because 73 is becoming really annoying as hell. He can't try to keep up their relationship while he's picking fights with other people. Eventually, he's going to have to take sides. Something has to give, and he has to really figure out how to get out of this box permanently, or else accept that this may be his fate now. So when it comes to the highlight, there's roughly two. The first is that it does feel like an extended Black Mirror episode. In most Black Mirror episodes, if I remember correctly, because it's been about maybe an hour, and this is about an hour and 12, 18 some odd minutes, and you can easily fit this into the universe, as in it puts you into this very much sci-fi world without it being about robots, graphics, and all this other stuff, the visuals that is. And instead it just gives you modern times with a bit of a dystopia feel, since these people are in boxes, don't know how they got in them, and the film doesn't want to dwell on how they got in, who's the villain, or any of that stuff. Instead, it wants to push, society in the question of how, with technology constantly evolving, are we adapting, or else even devolving in a way. And with that, you see the film definitely try to push the idea that in terms of what's happening with everybody, if you really got stuck into a box setting where your only purpose was to entertain others, what would you do? Would you be someone like 14, where you just make the best of the situation, do a song and dance type of step and fetch it type of thing? Would you be more so like 11, who, yeah, you may try to play the game in the beginning, but eventually you're going to rebel against the system? Are you going to be like 28, where you're going to be basically just a corporate stooge in a way and just be glad for whatever your masters or whatever give you and try to preach the good gospel of what they can give others? Or would you be like 73 in terms of pretty much deciding not to work within the system at all and just complain about it while essentially not doing much, if anything, about it? You know, there's these different ways of approaching it, and you could easily, if you want to make it deeper than it is, probably kind of compare it to how a lot of people live their lives now, when they're just stuck in one box then go into another, whether you're in the box that is your home, then you go box that is your job, and you may complain all the time, but are you really doing anything? I don't know. It's one of those type of films where you can definitely make it more than what it is, or else you could just look at it as it is and just be entertained with it. And I would say one of the key things that for me made it entertaining is that while you don't really learn much about anybody, which is always an issue for me when it comes to any movie or show, at the very least they get an emotional reaction out of you. 73 annoyed the hell out of me to the point I wish he would have just shut up and died. Especially because he's already presented as somebody who's sickly, who needs medicine, so I was just waiting for him to eventually just kick off to the universe, and then the focus could be on 14 and this kind of dual relationship he has between 11, who he definitely seems to have feelings for, compared to 28, where he may not have romantic feelings for, but he's definitely attracted to her body, and just trying to navigate either being on her side, especially because they start to evolve it and have something going, versus 28, who clearly is going to stay in this place and just deal with it. So maybe her positivity about the whole thing might be better for him. And it's, again, it's one of those things where it can be very simple if you want to look at it like that, or else you can make it more complex. It all depends. Like, if do you want to drink the Kool-Aid and deal with the poison and just die, but at least feel like you're dying in a joyful way, or do you want to fight against the system and potentially die that way, but at least say you died for something? But with all that said, the low point is pretty much what we mentioned before, in the fact that you don't learn anything about the whole setup. You don't learn how these people got in here. You don't know why they're chosen. There's no real villain in this movie at all. The only thing close to villain is just the opposing views and whoever you don't agree with. Do you agree with 11 in terms of they should be rebelling against the system and she's the hero, or do you see her as the villain because pretty much it's a simple life, a simple gig, you get food, water, and all that just for doing basic tasks, and maybe she's ungrateful? Or do you want to look at 28 as the villain in terms of her being everything that's wrong with the world because she makes it seem like you're ungrateful for getting the bare minimum and not having real autonomy? And in some ways you can say maybe this belongs in the on the fence column more than the low point, but for me, again, I'm somebody who, whenever possible, I love character development, and I also like world building, and while quality story is always necessary, it's one of those things where I want to have all 3 points of the triangle, not just 1 point. 2 is probably the best I can hope for half the time, but there's no real world built up. The characters, they don't really give us much background beyond, hey, this person in terms of 14 has a dog. I think 73 had a wife at one time, but beyond that, these characters don't have any real development. The world is very much contained in a way that can be frustrating because you have all these questions, and while the story keeps you engaged, especially as things happen, some things which are a bit graphic, sometimes it's just not enough. But overall, when it comes to Cher, I feel like if you're a fan of Black Mirror, else modern sci-fi dystopian type productions, you'll definitely get a kick out of this, especially as it questions the human condition, not only in a sort of simple way, but also in a complex way if you allow your mind to go so far.